Hi everyone, Liz here from paperandprep.com. Today we're going to be talking about rereading Harry Potter as an adult. I grew up with Harry Potter. I was born in 1995. I think I was 5 years old when the first movie came out, and they kept coming out until I was in high school. So Harry Potter was a huge part of my life growing up. I read all of the books, I saw all of the movies, I've seen the movies probably more than anything else. But I actually only read the books once through when each of them came out. Of course, the first few were already out when I was born because the first one was published in 1995. But I was always at the book release parties at midnight at the Barnes and Noble in my little Hogwarts robe. Harry Potter has always just been a huge thing for me. So I was a lit major in college. I spent a lot of time reading like Victorian lit, Renaissance literature, stuff from, anywhere from the 16th to the 20th century that would fall more under literature. And I think sometimes, I love to read that kind of stuff, but you can't dismiss or overlook the books that you loved when you were a kid that taught you to love how to read. And Harry Potter really is something that taught me to love to read. So I'm currently on the sixth book again, Harry Potter and the Half Blood Prince. So it's been an adventure. I started rereading the series a year ago when I graduated from college. And I got home. I was home for the summer, didn't really have anything to do, hadn't found a job yet, so I started reading Harry Potter again. And it was a great way to just kind of drop myself back into that world. I think we forget just how much is left out of the movies, like Hermione and Spew. Spew is a huge thing in the books, Hermione protecting elf rights. Also, the castle ghosts play a much bigger part in the books. Like, in I think it's the second book where they go to Nearly Headless Nick's Death Day party. Um, so there's just a lot of stuff that gets left out in the movies. I love them. I think they're awesome. Some of my favorites. And as far as adaptation goes, they do stay pretty true to the book. But there's only so much you can fit in an hour and a half to 2 hour long movie. So of course, when you read the books, you're just going to get a lot more. There's so much to the story. Also, one of my favorite parts of the books that is not in the movies is from The Half Blood Prince at the very beginning, where Dumbledore shows up to the Dursleys' house to pick up Harry. And of course, the first thing he says is, "You didn't let them know I was coming, did you, Harry?" So Dumbledore comes in his wizard outfit and his robe and his hat, and he just looks kind of silly. And he invites himself into the Dursleys' house. He sits down on their couch. He conjures up a few glasses of mead, and they won't take and drink them. So the glasses hit them in the head. And Dumbledore is just hilarious and snarky, and he takes Harry on their way to go get Professor Slughorn and convince him to come back to Hogwarts. But it really does feel like dropping back into the world when you start reading something like Harry Potter again. Same thing with the Chronicles of Narnia. I love the Chronicles of Narnia, and The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is awesome, but honestly, it's not my favorite of the series. I think a lot of people forget that there are books in the Chronicles of Narnia that are not a part of the main story about the Pevensey kids. But anyway, with Harry Potter, it's just sometimes when you're an adult and you're out of college and you're in the workforce for the first time, life is stressful. It's not easy. Sometimes you don't want to remember that you have to be back at the office on Monday and you have things to do besides sit and read and hang out at home. So it's nice to be able to have that fantastical world to go back to. At a certain point, the characters start to feel like old friends. Especially with such a long series. I got so invested in the books as a kid. I think I read the first three in like a couple of weeks. um, it feels like going home a little bit. And I know I don't want to be sappy or weird because it's a book series. I know it's not real, but it's been hugely important to me and inspired me a lot in my writing and as a creative person. Um, so it's okay to kind of jump back in and read the books that you loved when you were a kid that, taught you to love to read. And you don't have to feel like ashamed, like, oh, I'm reading kids' books, oh, I'm reading YA. Like, I would totally still read YA. I've reread several YA books on my shelf. Like Shiver by Maggie C. Fodder is a really great YA book that I still really like. Twilight, not so much. I had to reread that in a class senior year and I hated it, but that's another video. Um, but the point is, Harry Potter is a huge cultural thing in the United States, in England, all over the world. People my age and older grew up with it. It's been a huge part of our lives. I think it's a lot more acceptable to be really nerdy as an adult now. So go back and read those books that you loved when you were little. There's nothing wrong with that. They're awesome. Harry Potter is still some of my favorite books, even though I also love classics like Tolstoy and Nabokov and Jane Austen. I'm a huge Janeite. Harry Potter still kind of trumps everything for me because when I jump back in, it really does feel like going home. It really feels like the characters are my friends. It's a story that I have real buy-in into. Like, even though it's all totally fantastical, it feels real. It makes up a world in your head, and you can just kind of visualize everything. J.K. Rowling is an incredible writer, and an inspiring woman, period. So definitely would recommend if you're an adult who's never read Harry Potter or if you loved it as a kid and you just haven't picked the books up in a long time. You don't have to wait to have kids to read it to them. Just read it again yourself and have fun. Bye, guys.